for impact. Cross the line.
This is my destiny. It is the truth I see. In this world I fight a way to cross the line. Everybody's doing what everybody's doing. Everybody's doing the same thing. I'll be doing what I'll be doing. I'll be doing my thing. The world spins round to the right, they say. I'll be spinning the other way. Doing what I can, doing what I know. The world's my stage and I'm the show. It is my destiny. It is the truth I seek. In this world I find a way to cross the line. No possibilities for originality. Don't be left behind. Go ahead and cross the line.
Hey, now it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Corporate Mike Gilbert. I'm up here on the 25th floor in Charlotte. Man, it sucks. I had a line on a private office, and I thought I was gonna get it, right? But about an hour ago, my meeting ended. I saw the break in the schedule. I was like, okay, let me knock out a couple of admin tasks, and then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna walk over to Smoothie King. Right. Well, Smoothie King has an app and you can order ahead, and it's like a 12-minute walk to the Smoothie King up here. And you typically don't even have to leave the building because all these buildings are connected. So, if there's a building across the street, there's like a skywalk to get to it. So, I ordered it. And then as I'm walking over there, one of the skywalks was broken, was shut down. So they actually had the steel garage door closed. So I had to come back out, go all the way around in the kind of like semi-cold weather, walk around in through uptown Charlotte, go around. And I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt today. And so that sucked. And so it took me way longer to get back than usual, right? What normally is like a 20 to 25 minute round trip was like 30 to 40. And so that sucked. So then I come back, I check my emails again, make sure we're good to go. And then I grab my computer and I go walk over to one of the private offices, and every single one of them are taken. So now I'm like in a little closet space. So at least it had like a light, but I was supposed to have like this nice computer with the big webcam, and like a nice background behind me, but instead I'm in like a little bit of a closet space. So, but here we are. It's Brace for Impact. This is my 4th time going live this week. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you would know that already. Go to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show. Some of what I'm talking about today, I've already kind of talked about this week earlier on Patreon. And then, of course, a couple of days ago, I went live on YouTube just to discuss the potential of TNA heading to AMC networks. So if you missed that, it's already up on the YouTube channel. So please check that out. But if you like the content, please do me a favor and hit the like button, throw down a comment, and make sure you're a subscriber to this channel. And then if you really want to support us, head to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show. That is how we're able to continue to do this stuff. That's how we pay for the software. That's how we pay for, like JD can buy this weekend's AEW pay-per-view and we can actually review it on Sunday. So So I would greatly appreciate you guys giving us a subscription. That really does help us out. So, well, why are we here? Well, last night there was the TNA impact, and I was planning on going live immediately after the show. But as luck would have it, life got in the way, and it's usually my kids, and I love my kids. They're fantastic kids. Although my son, he's 1 now, and we put up the tree early this year, the Christmas tree. We put that up a little bit early, as you guys probably saw on Twitter a few days ago. And we did that just because we're on the East Coast for the first time. We're way away from our family, and kids are, my wife and my daughter are a little bit homesick for California. I know we did just move from Hawaii, so we were pretty far away there too. So when you're away from family and it comes Christmas time, and as you're getting closer to Christmas, you just want Christmas to be here because for whatever reason, it just makes people feel better. So anyway, we put up the tree a little bit earlier, and my little one, my son, he's a bit of a menace. He actually tried to set fire to some of our ornaments because we have a fireplace, and he actually started throwing the ornaments into the fireplace. At least he tried. He couldn't get them in there. So, but last night, he just didn't want to go to bed, and we had to divide and conquer, and both kids were staying up late. And so I didn't actually start the show last night until about 9, and I didn't finish it until 10:30. So come 10:30, I'm already pretty tired. I had just finished the show, and I would want to give a good amount of time. I want to open it up for comments and chats and stuff like that. So I would not have made it to bed till really late, and then I had to wake up this morning at 5 to be up here in Charlotte. And this morning I had an early morning at 8 a.m. conference call. And so I had to make sure that I was here in place like really early. So I actually left my house like 6:15 this morning. So, but that's why I didn't record last night and why I'm recording today. Now, thankfully, I have a break in my schedule for right now for a little bit, and we're good to go. So if you're watching us live, go ahead and pop in the chat. Let me know what you thought of last night's episode. Drop any topics or comments that you have. But let's get started with some of the news. I already did a video on it. I did like 10 minutes earlier this week about the AMC, potential AMC TV deal. And the update since then is there is no update. So if you're coming here for me to talk about the TV deal, I've already talked about it a couple of times this week, and there is no new updates. If you have questions about it, feel free to pop in the chat and drop a question. But as of right now, there's not really much to say other than I'm going to reiterate what I said on Tuesday, that if they do get the deal with AMC and AMC Plus, a significant upgrade over Access TV and TNA Plus, like huge, right? It's not as big as the one that we were all hoping for with CW and a potential deal with Peacock, which had also been rumored. There was also the rumor of All In with Peacock, TV show, pay-per-views, everything all in. That was something that people had speculated about. That also, I think that would actually even be better for TNA than say AMC and AMC Plus, even though, more people have access to AMC, just more wrestling fans watch Peacock because WWE has established the viewership there for pro wrestling. So that makes sense. I think the greater growth potential for TNA is with CW and Peacock. They fit in better on those networks because WWE has already established it, and but AMC is something new, and I would absolutely be great too, just not as great as the other one. So, people keep bringing this up to me, and I don't think I hit this the other day, and I saw it in the YouTube comments. Getting a deal with a TV network that is unaffiliated with WWE is actually a good thing. And I do agree with that to an extent. Now, if it is affiliated with the WWE, like I said, there's already an established audience there, right? There's a bunch of crossover between the two companies. A lot of TNA's audience now is just like WWE fans that don't have enough shit to watch. So they have decided to take on, TNA as one of their other shows that they like to watch. But if they go to an AMC, which is unaffiliated by WWE, they're no longer dependent on WWE. And if WWE drops them, it's not likely to affect their TV deal. Now, if WWE drops them and, ratings and ticket sales and everything go in the tank, which is also probable, then that could ruin the deal for them too. But I would say it's a positive to go to a WWE unaffiliated station because, with WWE, it's a volatile situation at all times, right? So you never know where you stand with those guys. A lot of people that thought that they were going to be there forever get dropped quick. So, all right, let's see. GAO Bly. I don't know who this is, but I'm here to ask you to watch rugby. I think this might be Ewan. I'm not sure. He's under a pseudonym, but this might be Ewan. You know, I've watched rugby before. They did like a championship game or something like that in Las Vegas like a year or two ago, and it got picked up by cable. Like I think it was on FS1, and I actually watched some of it. It's pretty fun. It's just not an American sport. So, and I don't really make a habit of watching foreign sports. So, we don't have. I don't even think we have. I'm sure we have some rugby teams, but like we don't have like local rugby leagues that are, carried, and we don't like our greatest athletes don't play there. They don't play that sport. Our greatest athletes play football and basketball and baseball and hockey and boxing, MMA, right? That's where our greatest athletes are going. So by the time you get to like an American, and I'm just talking about American, and by the time you get to an American rugby player, it's like several rungs down on the athletic scale. So, but that doesn't mean you can't be, I think internationally, like some countries, their greatest athletes play rugby and they're every bit as good as American athletes. That's just their preferred sport. But our greatest athletes play, our top sports because that's just what we do. So, and it's just embedded into our culture. And so, it's hard for me to like pick a favorite team, like, the All Blacks or something like that. So, but I have nothing against rugby, and if they were having like a big international matchup here in Charlotte and I'm in town, I'm like, I'd probably go. I got nothing against rugby. So let's see. The Legacy says Santana dropping a great promo as always. Demore expects him to win on the first show of the new channel, like Sammy beating Cage on Access TV. Well, I am glad you brought that up. So the Demore drop, or the Dew drop, as I like to call it, he has his article on Yahoo Sports on Ariel Helwani's Uncrowned site that is a Yahoo affiliate. I don't know. Why don't they just call it Yahoo? But it's on the Uncrowned, so. Which is what Ariel Helwani is like leading up. It's kind of like how the Ringer was on ESPN, not Ringer, Grantland, how Grantland was on ESPN. So he had an article and he talked about several things. Talked about Joe Hendry, and how he discovered Joe, or how Drum Boy, the guy that worked for him at Border City, was also a guy that worked in TNA, also battling cancer right now. So shout out to him. Hope he fights and comes through the other side of that. So I think his name is Jeff. So, but how Jeff had turned him on to Joe Hendry, and he, that's how they decided to go ahead and bring him in, and how they brought him in the early. So this is what I didn't know. They brought in Joe Hendry in 2018 into the Canadian tapings, and we didn't see him again after that. And I was like, why is this guy not around? Well, it's because he didn't have a visa, and they couldn't help get him a visa at the time. They weren't able to. So they only brought him in on the Canadian shows, and when they went back to the States, he wasn't a part of it. And then by the time he got his visa, he had signed with Ring of Honor. And so they waited until his Ring of Honor deal was done to sign him. So that's why that happened. I thought for some reason, like back in the day, they just decided not to bring him in, but it was a visa issue. So I was like, why aren't they keeping this guy around? This guy's funny. So that's why that was. And then, he was excited to bring him in, and now he's doing big things in WWE. So that was like the main point of the article, right? Well, then he gets to the Frankie Kazarian and just talks about his history with Frankie Kazarian and how, he's worked with him since 2002, and he's a great talent, obviously, and he's friends with his wife, and they're like family to him, and that tracks, right? That makes sense. And then how, Frankie, when Frankie was signed with AEW, he came over and did some Impact tapings, and his deal with AEW was coming to an end, and he wanted to sign with TNA, and Scott's like, look, I can't afford to pay you the way that AEW pays you. More on that later. So he goes, I'm not even going to extend this offer to you because you shouldn't take it. And Frankie wanted to take the less money to go to Impact because he just liked what they were doing. He wanted to work. He wanted to be a top guy. And so he was willing to take less money to go to Impact to do that. And Scott D'Amore said that when he brought Frankie over, the plan was to eventually make him world champion. And I fully believe that, because there's a lot of people that he brought to the company that were given promises to win world titles. And I expect nothing less than them to have promised Frankie the world title for him to come over there. He's taking less money. And now now he's like, okay, I'll take less money, but I want to be the world champion. And I'm sure for Scott D'Amore said, of course, right? PCO told me in a DM, and he said this publicly, so I'm not like sharing, private information. But that he didn't take less money, but he said that Scott D'Amore also promised him the world champion. Scott D'Amore promised a lot of people the world title. I get the feeling that's why Alex Shelley was the world champion. Like, I don't think it's ever been reported, but I'm just like taking a look at how things were going. I fully believe that that's why. Yeah. Do I think that Kaz had it in his contract? I don't know if he had it in his contract, but I think that was probably a promise. And I think they had it as a promise and a handshake, and they didn't want to go back on it like they did with PCO. With PCO, they absolutely went back on it. They refused to give him the title, and he was pretty salty about that. So they made up for it by creating another title. But for Frankie, he's, a well-respected guy, a great veteran, a tremendous wrestler, and somebody that everybody really likes and respects. And so they wanted to make that happen for him. And this is how they made it happen. So we can disagree with it. I disagree with it, but that's what they did. Now, Scott said something interesting in that article. He said that there's rumblings that Mike Santana will win that on the first episode of the new TV deal. And I have seen that too. Let me go back to Legacy's comment. I've seen that too. I don't think that's like an actual reported thing or an actual rumor or something. I think that is just something that people are saying online, and it picked up some traction, but I don't think that's actually like a report or anything. That's not like something that's been leaked from the company. It's something that people are doing to try to wrap their heads around why they would do. And I'm going to shout out my friend Dobby, who said this first. It's just people trying to justify the crappy booking of TNA is to present something that might be a great idea later that could make up for what they just did. And there is precedent here. Sami Callihan beating Brian Cage on the first episode of TNA on Impact, or Impact on Access TV. Yeah, that happened. So Brian Cage successfully defended the title. I think he successfully defended his title against Sami at Bound for Glory. And then a couple weeks later, they debut on Access TV, and they have a steel cage world title main event, and Sami Callihan beat him for the title. And then they immediately set up his next challenger, which was Tessa Blanchard, and then they ended up doing that in January. So could they do the same exact thing? Well, as history has proven, this company is immune to new ideas, right? Right now, the whole storyline that they're doing is the same storyline. The storyline they're doing for Mike Santana is the same storyline they did with Josh Alexander. Almost like some unique story beats in there, but the framework is the same. It's basically the same, right? And so could they do the same thing? Instead of waiting until April, they wait until the first episode of the new TV deal to kick it off with Santana winning the title back. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Do I believe that Scott D'Amore knows that that's the plan and that he's reporting that that's the plan? No, and I didn't take his words as that. I think he took it as people online are speculating that this could be the plan. And just when you look at it, that would make sense. People seem to be very confident that new TV deal is coming, and John Alba specifically, he was very vocal about it in his Sports Illustrated article. So whereas last week I was not very confident, I'm kind of back up to where like now I think it's going to happen. So let's see. Gerard says, got the Dave Meltzer look today, holding the mic. Yeah. Well, I typically will have like the attachment on the desk, and I do have like a stand, but it just doesn't fit here where I'm sitting, so I have to hold it. So if I did use the stand, I'd be like hovered like this the whole time. And I don't want to do that because it's bad for your posture. It's bad for your neck and shoulders. So um, I'm going to be just, chilling like this because I feel more comfortable this way. So Gerard also says, Kaz deserves to be champ, in my opinion. I just didn't like how or when they did it. So here's an alternative perspective. So instead of Mike Santana winning the title on the first episode of the new TV deal, what if they did Kaz on that? I don't think anybody would. It wouldn't have gotten anywhere near the level of hatred, and not hatred in a good way, to where Kaz is a bigger heel now. Hatred in the sense that people don't want to watch the show, and in fact, I felt the last night's show had no buzz whatsoever. I know at one point they were trending, but trending doesn't mean a goddamn thing anymore. You can trend with like 300 tweets. So, but last night's show had like no buzz. There was nothing spectacular or significant. There was no real reason and not that last night's show was bad, but there was nothing that gripped the viewer that was must see heading into the show. Because right now the company is cold, even with that angle that they shot. If they waited until the spring, say when like that TV deal kicks in, and that's just me speculating. I don't have any inside info on this one, but say it's like February, March timeframe when that new TV deal kicks in, and they do it then. And then to kick off the new TV deal, they have the first main event be Mike Santana defending the world title against, pick a heel, right? You could build up a heel, which they don't do that in pro wrestling anymore, right? More on that later. They don't build up challengers anymore. They beat challengers, and then they win a ridiculous match, and then they become the number one contender. That's like, it's just pro wrestling. It's how they do it. It's so stupid. But I think Dave was even remarking about, Ricochet. He's in this tournament for the TNA or the AEW national title. He got his ass kicked by Bobby Lashley 2 nights ago, and which means he's probably going to be the guy that wins the title. So just the way this is just modern wrestling now. It's like, hey, we're going to take care of him a little bit. Let's just beat his ass right now, instead of keeping someone strong, building them up, and then now they're the champion, right? So, they could have had him defending the title against a heel, or even like a strong babyface, right? Like they could just do a big match on the first episode, and then after that match is when they do the cash in, right? Give Mike Santana a little bit of a run, and then Frankie cashes it in, wins it, and then he goes on a little bit of a run and has a world title reign, and then he kicks it back to Mike Santana or to Leon Slater or whoever else is next in line. But they could have done it that way, but instead they felt the need to swerve and shock and bullshit, and it's it's just so lame. It's something, it's stuff that they do, that WWE does, that TNA can't get away with because they're just not as good at it. The Seth Rollins thing with CM Punk, he just won, and and Seth Rollins had faked an injury, and speculation went on for like a month, and it was a whole big swerve, cashed it in as this huge moment. TNA doesn't have that capability. They just don't. And in fact, they're just, what they did with Frankie is that not only are they copying the Seth Rollins deal without the injury, they're copying the Seth Rollins deal that just happened. They're also copying what they did 3 years earlier with Josh Alexander. So just a lack of vision, a lack of creativity. And that's what happens when you get, people that have, been in the wrestling business for a long time, and they just kind of recycle ideas, with different people. We need to get new creative energy in the company. So let's see. Legacy X, assuming visa issues can be worked out, TNA should sign Progress Wrestling's Luke Jacobs long term, especially since Progress is closing and a bunch of TNA deals are all up at the same time. Never heard of that guy? Gonna take your word for it. Okay. Gibster. I take it back. I've heard of Luke Jacobs. I just don't know much about him, right? But I know who he is. I can't sit here and tell you if he's good or not because I just don't know. Gibster 83. I still think AJ will have a world title match at Genesis with Kaz and win, and Nick Nemeth will cash in and take the belt off AJ. I mean, I am willing to bet that that's not going to happen. So I'm sure that TNA would love to get dates on AJ Styles if they were going to have a big match with Frankie and AJ, maybe don't beat Frankie in his first match as the world champion. Maybe make him a little bit stronger. Instead, now you got this weak champion who doesn't deserve the title, clearly. And you want to bring in AJ Styles. It's like, why? Makes no sense to me. And then you do the same gimmick with Nick Nemeth, which I think that they will do that. I think Nick Nemeth is going to win via cash in as well. One of the things that story that I think is BQ texted to me. He's like, dude, they're going to have Nemeth win it, or they're going to have Santana win it Genesis, and Nemeth is going to cash in and win it. they're going to do the same thing. Like, I think TNA is that dumb. It's like, hey, this didn't work. This didn't get over. Let's do it again. So I could absolutely see them doing that. Let's talk about Genesis, by the way. When is it? Does anybody know? Like, I know it's in the calendar month of January 2026. It's in the vicinity of Dallas, Texas. Could be Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington. Who knows, right? Maybe Austin. That's, like what, 30, 40 minutes away. They've done that before. They called it Boston. Actually, Lowell for Bound for Glory. That's a possibility too. But, does anybody really know when this is? Why haven't they made an announcement? That's weird. It's a big show. It's a pay-per-view. We're 2 months away, and we still don't have any information on the show other than the location. And we just have a geographical region, right? Dallas is a big area. So we have like this geographical region. And we have the month. That's all that we have. The whole thing is weird. It screams to me that they don't have a deal in place for the venue. Or that's the only thing I could think of as to why. Like, they weren't really prepared to announce it because they don't have a deal in place. That's the only thing that I could think of. But where else are they going to go in Dallas besides the Curtis Culwell? It's the Culwell Center. What other weekend would they run other than January 18th? I think there's so much going on the rest of that time. And if you take a look at the TV tapings and how they line up, that makes sense. January 18th, at least that weekend. And so, like, what else could they be doing? Like, I don't know. It makes no freaking sense. So, it comes across as a bit incompetent to make that announcement without having a deal in place. And then now AEW is got the jump on them because they're going to be running a residency at a series of shows in Arlington at that video game place, the esports arena that they have in Arlington that they did, I think last summer, maybe. They've ran there a bunch of times at the esports arena where they're going to do a series of collisions and Ring of Honors and Dynamites all in that same venue, all in Arlington. It's like you can get like 1,000 people there. And so I guess for TNA, like, good luck running in and it's the same month. Good luck running in Dallas. Good luck getting anywhere near what you had last year in Dallas. I think they were like, reports were like 4,000. It was probably like 3,500. But we'll say 4. Why not? Good luck getting close to that. They also ran El Paso earlier this year, and they had like 3,500. Right now they're set up for 2, and they might get that. They might come close to that for Final Resolution, but they're not going to get anywhere close to that for the TV tapings. I think they're like under 1,000 both nights. So, let's see. EPW show. So what's up, brother? And then the W Pod. How's it going, W Pod? He said, we also don't know where. Yeah, we just know that it's in Dallas. We don't know what venue. So, that whole thing is weird. All right, let me see if I got a couple more notes. So, all right, let's get to Final Resolution card announcements. So, some of this I'll talk about as I run down the TV show. We got several matches were confirmed for the December 5th TNA Plus event. Speaking of El Paso, in the main event, we have Frankie Kazarian versus Johnny Dango Curtis, Fandango himself. For them to put this as the main event, tells me that they do not respect their ticket buying audience, and they do not respect the people that subscribe to their app. This is very much a match, and this is not anything against either guy, right? Like, Frankie's the champion. We can say whatever we want. I don't think that Frankie's a guy that's going to carry a company as a world champion. I just don't. I think he's a transitional champion at best. Johnny Dingo Curtis maybe won 3 matches his whole time in TNA. As far as singles matches go, and they played that up during the show like he doesn't deserve a title match. They're only giving him this match because he's friends with people. That's the reason. So they're not servicing you, the audience. They're not servicing the ticket buyers. They're not servicing the people that pay for the app. And people pay for it. This is not a free show. They are servicing each other. They think they're entertaining themselves by putting this match on. They don't care what you think about this match. They only care about what they think and about taking care of their friend who's about to retire. Now, some of you may say, well, this is a great match to headline a pay-per-view or headline a TNA Plus special. Okay, we can disagree on that all day. These are 2 good pro wrestlers. They might have a good pro wrestling match. It is not marquee. This is not a main event that any other major promotion would put on. It just isn't. I think that most other major promotions would probably be embarrassed if they put they put this on as a headlining match for a monthly special that people were spending their money on. I don't think that Tony Khan or even a Triple H would do something like this to their ticket buying audience. I just don't think they would. They don't have a healthy respect for the people that are purchasing tickets. They're only taking care of themselves here. And that's a shame. You know, they really should go above and beyond to take care of their consumer base because they don't have a lot of consumers. They don't have a lot of people that are spending a lot of money on them. They just don't. You know, they have a small core audience, and they need to do a better job of servicing those people and putting on the best possible product that they can for those people instead of, hey, you know, it'd be nice. It's like, we have our friend and his wife won't let him wrestle anymore. Which, shout out to the wife. I get it. My wife doesn't let me do certain things anymore. Makes sense. But his wife won't let him wrestle anymore. So let's give him a main event and send him packing. And let's give the new champion a victory on a big show. Because nobody in their right mind believes that JDC is winning this match. You can't. If you do think that, you're a fucking moron. And I don't have any respect for you. So Frankie's winning this match. It's a throwaway show, and I don't think that TNA is in a position to have throwaway shows. But this whole card is kind of a throwaway card if you look at it. There's not a single marquee match on it. There just isn't. So that doesn't mean some of the matches won't be good. Like, you get pro wrestlers and you let them wrestle, they can do great things. But when I talk about marquee, there's not like anything like interesting that anybody needs. Like, there's no outcome on this pay-per-view that's interesting. There just isn't. So we got Frankie and JDC in the main event. Tag team championships, we got the Hardys versus Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe. I think they're called High Rise. Young up-and-coming tag team. I'm going to talk about the storyline in a little bit as I run down the show. But not a marquee match. Just isn't. TNA International Championship. Steve Macklin defending against Stax. Stax can barely get on NXT television. He's getting a title shot here. Now, I know that part of the storyline is these guys are attacking TNA, and so they want to welcome them into the front door as opposed to them just doing sneak attacks. And to do that, they're using their titles as bait. I get the storyline. I just don't think it's a very good one. So we got Macklin versus Stax. A TNA Knockouts World Championship. More on that in a minute. Kaylani Jordan or Lei Ying Lee versus Danny Luna or Zaya Brookside. So there you go. TNA X Division Championship, Leon Slater versus AJ Francis. This is going to be a sleeper match of the whole show. AJ Francis is way better than anybody's willing to give him credit for. I like this match with BDE at Final Resolution. And I think that him and Slater are going to tear it down. In fact, I'd probably put this match as the main event, to be honest with you. Because this is probably the match that's going to be really good. And it's going to be interesting to see where AJ Francis goes from here. His contract's due at the end of the month. Do I think he's going to resign? Yes. Is that a guarantee? No. Because we don't know what 2026 is going to look like for the company. We think they're going to have a TV deal, but you can't really count your chickens before they hatch. But I think Leon Slater versus AJ Francis is going to be a sleeper match of the show. Street Fight, Matt Cardona versus Mance Warner should be a pretty good match. And then additional matches teased were, Mike Santana versus Robert Stone. I think that's going to be, so that's coming up that's coming up soon. So that's your final resolution card. That's a pretty weak ass card. So if I were in El Paso, I would feel so disrespected right now. So I would feel really disrespected. And they're struggling to sell tickets compared to where they were earlier this year. Here's another reason. They don't have a single Mexican on this card. They got no Mexican talent, and they're going to El Paso, which is almost Mexico, right? Like Lucha Libre is huge in El Paso. What sold them tickets before? Like they actually had Laredo Kid out there front and center doing media. They brought in Chavo Guerrero Jr. They don't have anything like that. They disrespected Laredo Kid for years, and now he moved on. He's full-time with AAA, obviously. Chavo Guerrero also works for AAA. So they don't have a single Mexican talent on this roster, which, like, if I were a Mexican talent, I wouldn't want to come sign here because they don't have any respect for them unless they go to El Paso. And now and now we see what's happening, right? They're probably going to have, maybe half of the ticket buying audience that they had last time they were there. So, and I think they'd be lucky to have half. So, all right, let's see. Okay. I'm going to do a spoiler real quick. I'm not going to talk about it for very long. So if you don't want to hear the spoiler, fast forward, drop out, come back in a couple minutes. Okay. But we have big Knockouts title news. This coming up Tuesday on NXT, there's going to be a match. It's going to be Kalani Jordan versus Lei Ying Lee versus Jordan Grace. They recorded it this past Tuesday. It was at the theater at Madison Square Garden. So it's that little small, they used to call it the Hulu Theater, but small theater outside of Madison Square Garden, kind of feeds into the bigger venue. And Lei Ying Lee wins. She pinned Kalani Jordan clean. So there you go. We have a new Knockouts champion. So she is going to be the Knockouts champion going forward. I talked about it on Tuesday on Patreon, but I don't think this was ever the plan. I think that they were scrambling to find a champion, and so they worked out a deal with NXT to put the title on Kalani Jordan when Ash by Elegance went down, because they had the big showdown show, and like TNA doesn't have anybody on their roster besides Indy Hartwell that could have fit into that role as leading the Knockouts, and they didn't want to put the title on Indy Hartwell probably just yet. I thought Danny Luna would have been the right person, but I'm sure NXT is like, Danny Luna is not a star, so we wouldn't want her in that role. And Tessa wouldn't have worked because they don't want Tessa on NXT for obvious reasons. So, and Lei Ying Lee can't cut promos. That is what it is. So I'm sure NXT did not want any of those people, and so they decided to work out a deal to have Kalani Jordan be that, because NXT has big plans for Kalani Jordan. I think they obviously really like her, and they wanted to give her a push, give her a shine, and she wasn't doing anything significant on the show at that moment. So that was the perfect person, according to NXT, to get that done. So that's why they did that. So it's not inside info, and that's just, me watching TV. So that makes sense to me. But now we have a new champion in Lei Ying Lee, and I'm sure that they will be transitioning to Indy Hartwell at some point, which I think is a big mistake. So, all right, let's see. Let me get to the chat real quick. All right. Final resolution looks like it's going to be a decent show, but nothing truly headlining. Kaz versus JDC screams of a world title match, not main eventing, but none of those other ones would main event over. Like I said, I think that Leon versus AJ Francis should probably be the headlining match. JDC versus Kaz would only be okay as a main event on an episode of Impact. It would, but if you were like, for like ratings wise? Like, how do you think that would do in the ratings if we actually had that information in quarter hours? Do you think people are going to stay till 10 o'clock to finish that match? I don't think so. W Pod, Santino needs to be released. Man, Santino hate. All right, EPW, sad to see Mike Santana running this gauntlet of NXT B team as well. Yeah, for sure. Legacy says, what is your opinion on MLW moving their HQ to your neck of the woods and their new arena setup? I like it. I think Charleston's a good town for them. It's not really my neck. It's like 3 hours away. So I doubt that I'll get to go check it out anytime soon. I would have to make like plans because I got the two little ones and I'm not doing it out and back 3 hours away. I'm too old. So, but we have discussed possibly like taking a vacation, like a weekend thing, like going down on a Friday and spending the night and coming back on a Sunday, and just checking out the sites on a Saturday. So if they do something like that, I'd be down. But I'm not going to go down there on a Thursday. I'm not skipping work for it. So, but I think they got a cool setup down there. Then they have a really good crowd and lots of Lucha Libre fans down there, lots of Mexican fans down there, and they're running a lot of CMLL talent. So they're doing great. And they had a show last night, and I'm going to try to get to watch it this weekend. So I heard it was really good. All right. Let's see. Dobby says AJ Francis has been hinting the past couple days that he might have signed a new deal. That tracks. That makes sense. I don't see anybody else wanting him, to be honest with you. Maybe they will bring in El Grande Americano to represent the Mexican culture. yeah, maybe. I know that would offend a lot of white people. White people are upset about that. Okay. All right. Let me get to some other notes. Okay. Nick Nemeth. He appeared on Monday Night Raw as Dolph Ziggler. He made a surprise one-off return to WWE Raw on November 17th at the Madison Square Garden, entering John Cena's Last Time Is Now tournament as Dolph Ziggler. He got a huge pop. Was over, so over that I wouldn't be surprised if they end up bringing him back, to be honest. No, like he was that over. Like if you get I watched the match and I watched all the clips and huge, right? Like he comes across as a much bigger star than Solo Sikoa, and he made Solo Sikoa look like he can have a passable match, and he just can't. So, but he's not returning to the ring. He's not returning to WWE at this point, but I would not be surprised if they decide to bring him back. Matt Cardona also returned to WWE on Friday as Zack Ryder. His first appearance under that gimmick since leaving WWE in 2020. He lost the match but broke his silence post-show, calling it the resurrection of Ryder. Now they're selling merch and stuff like that, but again, he's not signed there. In fact, he was on TNA tonight. He wrestled on TNA the next night. So he is he's staying a free agent as of right now. So there you go. That was all the news that I had. Yeah, that was all the news that I had for this week. So let me see. Do I got anything else in the chat? Nope. Okay. Let me go ahead and get to the Impact results, and then we're going to send this thing home. All right. So we had Impact still, again, at Full Sail University. Yeah, this is the Fallout episode of Turning Point, or Fallout from Turning Point. And let's see. Opening segment, Mike Santana addresses the crowd. So the crowd was silent for this one. I think because he was sitting in a chair and they had all the focus on him, but it's just like eerily quiet. I thought Mike Santana did a great job. Great promo. He is a fantastic promo. He's one of the best in the business right now, for sure. And he referenced his Thousands Days Sober. He used a saying when he said, he's accepting life on life terms. So I was like, oh yeah, he definitely went to a meeting recently. He talked about the reason why he was late to final resolutions because he was at a meeting. Orlando probably has meetings every hour. Could have went to an earlier one, just saying, but that's the storyline. So that's what they did. And he said that he's, while he's focused on Frankie, he's going to take out these NXT B team, the Evolve guys, one by one, and then he's going to go after Frankie. So there you go. And then we go backstage. Kazarian disrespected JDC's wife in a backstage confrontation. JDC fired back, expressing his hunger for a TNA World title shot. He noted that defeating Eric Young in the main event would earn him that opportunity. So basically, Frankie interrupted Santino, and Santino said, well, hey, look, I can't talk to her. And I got an appointment with JDC, which brought in JDC. Frankie made fun of JDC's wife. JDC broke character, said, "Don't talk about my wife." And then he said he wanted the title shot. Santino said, "Well, if you can beat Eric Young, you can get a title shot." Here's the thing. That was not a number one contender match because Santino never said that if Eric Young won, he got the title shot. It was only a title shot for JDC. So talk about like, foreshadowing, right? Or not even for like ruining the stipulation. Like only one guy gets a title shot in the match. That makes no sense. It was not a number one contender match, but that's what they did. And the whole night, it was made very clear that JDC doesn't deserve a title shot. So not only do you have a weak champion who lost in his very first match as champion, you have a weak contender, and you're expecting that to main event a TNA Plus special. If I were in El Paso, I would sell my tickets. I would not go to that fucking show because they don't have any respect for your money whatsoever. A Knockouts 4-way match. It was so that basically a tournament. So they had 2 4-way matches. This is the first one. So the 2 winners of the 2 4-way matches are gonna fight later, and then they get a title shot at Final Resolution. So there you go. So match number 1 was Danny Luna versus Indy Hartwell versus Rosemary versus Myla Grace. We have not seen Rosemary wrestle in a bit, so it was nice to see her. Myla Grace, I've been begging for them to get her on TV. Harley Hudson was there with her. They're a tag team. They need to have tag team matches too. Like I think Harley Hudson might be the better wrestler of the two, but it was nice to see Myla Grace get on TV finally. So I thought this match was pretty good. Danny Luna, I think, is incredible. She pinned Indy Hartwell in the match. So Grace had a top rope dive to wipe out Rosemary on the floor. That looked like it hurt Rosemary, actually, but I don't think it did. Inside, Luna and Hartwell traded double clotheslines. Rosemary introduced a steel chain, but Grace sent her into the post. Luna capitalized by using the chain on Hartwell for the pinfall victory. So there you go. And then when we go to another segment, we got Eric Young. He's hyping his main event match against JDC, promising to expose the truth. And he's got people in masks. I was thinking that the exposing of the truth is that he's behind the Robert Stone, like the infiltrators from NXT. I was thinking that. I'm starting to think this leads nowhere. Like they've just been doing the storyline since August. It's very likely that this is not going anywhere. It's just like, I think they're just giving him stuff to do. And it's just something that he's just doing, and like it's going to lead to nothing. Like I think that's a real possibility because I've had so many different ideas of what this could be. And then as time goes on, people care less and less and less. He keeps losing matches. It's clearly not going to end up with him in some type of main event spot or a big time storyline. I think it's just something that he's doing, and then one day it's just going to end because I don't think they've actually thought it through. Because for a while I thought he was bringing back Sanity, and I was like, okay, that'd be big, right? Like Sanity was cool. And then I was like, okay, well, the Righteous, they're free agents. They never went to WWE. Maybe he's bringing in the Righteous. I think that makes sense. That tracks. Similar type characters. And they never came in. And then when you take a look at these masked people, none of them are Vincent or Dutch. So I'm like, okay, well, it's not the Righteous. And then I was thinking that it's the NXT folks. But they did a promo without masks on. And then here's Eric Young walking with people in masks, and one of them was a female. They're just getting different people every time they go to a new city. I don't think this goddamn thing is going to ever go into, like, it's going to be revealed as something inconsequential and it's going to get dropped. Like, I don't think this is anything significant whatsoever. So be prepared to be disappointed by this storyline for sure. TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardys, and Steve Macklin, they discussed baiting the invaded NXT outsiders with their titles. So, yeah, they talked Santino into letting them put their titles on the line to bait these guys in. So, there you go. And then we get Matt Cardona versus Mance Warner. Now, I was disappointed in this matchmaking when I first heard it because, like, why are these guys wrestling? It made no sense to me. And then they told the story of what happened in Bound for Glory. And then I realized Bound for Glory was so long ago, and they're just now getting back to television that I've already forgotten storylines they had going on before from October. So that's why you don't take that much time off. Or at least if they're going to, try to keep the storyline in the forefront of everybody's mind if you're going to take a month off. But they didn't. So also, if TNA ends up on AMC, that Mance Warner entrance at Bound for Glory with the zombies kind of makes sense now. I don't know. I don't know if that was foreshadowing. I don't know, but that, kind of interesting in hindsight. So there you go. But Mance Warner got the victory here. Is it just me, or is it kind of dumb to pin Matt Cardona the day after he has this big match on SmackDown? So, I know it's now leading to a no disqualification match at El Paso. So you want to give Mance a victory, but they could have had Cardona wrestle somebody else, get a win, and then Mance Warner attack him afterwards because he's still mad about what happened at Bound for Glory, right? Instead of having Mance beat Matt Cardona, because now we know 50-50 booking, Matt Cardona is going to win in El Paso because they're never going to get behind Mance. So, and I like Mance. I think they should get behind him, but I just know them. I know that they're not going to. So, I don't know. I wouldn't have beat Matt Cardona right after he's on SmackDown. And I would have played up that he was on SmackDown all week, even though on SmackDown and on Raw, Dolph Ziggler and Zack Ryder never got announced as TNA talents just because they, they're free agents technically. They don't technically work here. They're just, freelancers, and they just kind of come and go. But I just thought that was weird. So injury report, Bioflex. Mike Santana has a torn UCL. I think I saw Body Slam cover that. That might have been Gerard. It's that's a worked injury, guys. Elijah's out indefinitely with his tricep. And so there you go. And then you got the invading group, Robert Stone, Charlie Dempsey, the NXT group, Lexus King, Stax, Brooks Jensen, and High Rise. Declared they're taking opportunities in TNA rather than waiting for them. Here's where they should go with the storyline. Now, bear with me. I think that their gripe with TNA shouldn't be that TNA came and attacked NXT, because they're not there on behalf of NXT, right? Their gripe with TNA is that TNA is coming to NXT and taking away television time from them because these guys can't get on TV, right? That's the gripe. That's why they should be angry. They shouldn't be angry because TNA came and attacked some of the NXT top stars, because they weren't attacking these jabronis. These jabronis weren't getting TV time because NXT was devoting so much time to Mike Santana, to Joe Hendry, who they took, right, to the Hardys, and all these other TNA talents that have had prominent spots on NXT television as of late. These guys were kicked to Evolve. These guys are not on TV at all. So I know Lexus King has done some backstage stuff, but for the most part, none of these guys are doing a goddamn thing. And so it makes sense that, hey, look, you guys are coming to our neck of the woods, taking TV time away from us. So we're going to come to your channel, and we're going to come to your company and take away your TV time. We're going to get our TV time come hell or high water. And this is how we're going to do it. Right. That should be the gripe. That should be the storyline. But, and then I think that Eric Young should be the head of the storyline, but now it's I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So, but I didn't think the promo was bad, although Lexus King, when he talked, I was cut him off. He sucks. He's got to go. I thought everybody else was pretty good, though. Let's see. Next, we got Myron Reed of the Rascals versus John Skyler. Watching this, I was I think they got a dude in Myron Reed. John Skyler's a journeyman, and he's just a very good worker. I don't think he's going to be a star for them. I think Myron Reed, he kind of reminded me of young Mike Santana when Mike was in LAX. Kind of a skinnier guy, high flyer, but doesn't have the main event look yet. He needs to get a little older and get a little bit more grizzled, probably put on some weight, and then maybe you have a upper main event level guy for their company if they can get behind him. He's probably got to slow down some of his stuff a little bit, work more of a main event style, but I think he can get there. He's still a young guy, even though he's been around a long time. But that's just what I thought watching this match was I think Myron Reed's got something. Now, John Skyler got the win because Jason Hodge did the distraction. So, of course, we got to get a roll up for a victory. But, yeah, I thought that was I thought it was a good match, and I thought Ryan Reed looked great. So now we got a backstage segment with AJ Francis and Rich Swann, and AJ Francis is pissed at Swann for losing the X Division title match and shaking hands with Leon Slater. And Rich Swann was like, I'm just giving him his respect, his sportsmanship. And Leon Slater then enters the scene and essentially challenges AJ Francis to a match at Final Resolution, which of course that's what we're getting. So, and then we get a search for Mr. Elegance. I thought this was kind of funny. It's really bad TV, but I thought it was kind of funny. They went through a few different people, one of which Ashby Elegance had sex with. So like they made it very clear. And so he was disqualified because she did him. So there you go. All right. Knockouts 408 match number 2. Xia Brookside got the victory over Victoria Crawford, who sucks, Killer Kelly, and Jody Threat. I didn't think this one was as good as the first one. It was what it was. Xia Brookside got the victory. Then we get a segment with a Jada Stone and her rival. She is the Spark. I thought this was great. I thought she looked awesome. Good promo. Really good way to introduce this character. Now, can we see her wrestle? Let's see that. We saw Mila Moore this past weekend. Now let's see Jada Stone. Let's phase out some of. We got to phase out Victoria Crawford, right? We got to phase out some of these other folks. I don't want to say older, like you're still good, that's fine. But some of these other folks that are taking up TV time and not really doing anything of note. And let's get some fresher faces on this show. And I think Jada Stone and Mila Moore and Harley Hudson and Mila Grace that's who they need to focus on. You know, I always look at everything in football terms when it comes to pro wrestling, and that's probably not the way to do it. But when I just look at the structure of the roster, you know, I take a look at 49ers defense and who is struggling right now because, you know, Nick Bosa and Fred Warner went down. But they've had a lot of young guys step up, right? And some of these young guys are going to earn themselves a lot of money because they got thrust into these positions. And then in the offseason, they decided not to re-sign Dre Greenlaw or Talanoa Hufanga, and they traded away Malik Collins, and then they cut Javon Hargrave. And so and then they drafted some people. So we got like the youngest defense in the league, and a lot of these kids are stepping up. And you know, it's nowhere near as good as what it would be with some of these older folks. But in like a year or two, it's going to be a pretty stout defense, right? Especially if they keep adding pieces. And that's kind of the way I see some wrestling roster and the Knockouts roster specifically. You know, you lose some of the folks, you lose Jordan Grace, and you lose these other folks to free agency. That's an opportunity to create some new faces instead of going back to the well of the unemployment line. Draft some people and build them up into your image. They got 4 talents in the Knockouts division that they could say is their own. And then you add that to M by Elegance and Heather Reckless. Like now you got 6, right? Like that's really good. Focus on those 6. So, you know, they have an opportunity here to restructure this roster in their image. That way in like a year or two, you got a deep roster of knockouts that you can pull from. And then you bring in a couple of free agents and like you're set. All right. And then we go to the main event, JDC versus Eric Young. It wasn't a bad match. It wasn't a good match. I didn't think the match got over. Frankie was on commentary. He was pretty funny. He's pretty, you know, that's all. That's the best I can say about Frankie is it's like, he's a great wrestler who's funny on the mic, and his character is funny. I just don't think it's a world championship character. That's my opinion. So you can agree or disagree, but anyway, JDC got the victory, and now he is going to get the world title match. And so there you go. All right, chat. What do we got to see? What do we got to say, chat? Let me go up for a little bit. All right. Speaking of what happened with the Messiah story. So he just kind of showed up and confronted Steve Macklin, and then we never saw him again. And Steve Macklin, I thought, was going to go to AAA. That never happened. So there you go. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. Do you think it'll be Xia versus Lee for the knockout title at Final Resolution? I don't want to say. But if I were a betting man, let's see. Dobby says, I actually think the NXT guys did a decent promo. Yeah, I thought so too. I just didn't think that. I thought Lexus King stunk. EPW, someone helped my Bills. Yeah, they lost to the Texans last night. But I can tell you what, man. Texans struggling on offense, but once they get that figured out, their defense is so insane. They don't need to have a fantastic offense. Their pass rush is fucking incredible. Like, they destroyed Mac Jones the other day. Mac Jones doesn't hold the ball for very long. He gets the ball out quick, but the pass rush was so furious. The pass rush was so furious that he couldn't even get the ball out. They sacked him so many times, and that's what happened to Josh Allen last night. They can make good quarterbacks look like rookies for sure. So if they can keep that up, if the defense can stay healthy, and they can get CJ Stroud back, and now they got this new running back in Houston. I think it's Willie Marks. Willie, something like that. Man, Texans might be stout in the playoffs because, what do you need in the playoffs? You need defense, right? That's really what you need in the playoffs. So they might be onto something in Houston. Okay. The dude they implied Ash had sex with on the show is her husband. That's pretty funny. Yeah, nice to see Jada's background too with the NJPW dojo, and she did some stuff with TJPW as well. Yeah. Yeah, 8 sacks, yeah. And then Legacy X is RIP George Tajinos. Yeah, great photographer. So, all right, guys, I think that's going to do it for me this time on Brace for Impact. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for dealing with my hairline and me kind of like in a closet, essentially. It's weird. Holding the microphone like I'm Dave Meltzer. I even got no, this wasn't planned, by the way. I even got like the tight shirt on where you guys can see the guns a little bit. So not planned, but feel free to enjoy the show, the gun show. 42 years old and can still do bicep curls. But that's going to do it for me this week on Brace for Impact. Make sure you go to patreon.com/Mike and JD Show. I greatly appreciate it. And until next time, mahalo.